I notice more and more every single time I try to have a political discussion with somebody that the average person knows quite literally nothing about how their government functions. And while I am of the opinion that it definitely is something that you should learn and should be informed about, I also understand that not everybody's going to, and that you're not just going to drop dead because you don't know about it. My problem stems from the fact that whenever you try to have an actual political discussion with anybody, everybody is suddenly an expert. These same people have mostly never read a single book about economics or just politics in general and would be completely hard-pressed to pass a high school civics course. Another problem is that these same people often get all of their information from one source, whether it be TikTok, MSNBC, or any other big news channel. Yes, conservatives, even Fox News. TikTok is its own beast, which I'll cover in a minute, but first I want to talk about legacy news sources. Legacy news sources such as the aforementioned MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, etc. are so biased that I have a hard time calling them news sources. They are more so propaganda outlets. And it's so funny when I say that to people and they look at me like I have three heads when it's just objectively true. They spread misleading information in order to push their political narrative. And technically for propaganda, it doesn't even have to be misleading. It just has to be information to push a narrative. However, in the case of basically every single big media organization, it is using misinformation. And in some cases, it's not even just being deceitful, it's literally straight up lying. They also a lot of times try to make things seem more dramatic than they actually are, obviously, because they want you to click on it. They want you to listen and watch. So they try to make it a battle. Understand that whenever you are actually watching the news, you are being marketed to. You are being marketed that news program even more as you're watching it. And not as a source of information, but a source of entertainment. And news media is always going to be like this. It always has been like this, from the newspaper to TikTok. So when you're looking at any news source, you need to think to yourself, what motivations does the person writing this or talking about this have for making this piece? And that's the problem with these so-called informed individuals. They are informed on the basis of they watched a ton of news, but they gave it no critical thinking because that takes actual effort and research, and they don't want to do that because they might find something that goes against what they want to believe. And people don't always want to believe positive things. For instance, they want to believe bad things about people they don't like. That's why people on the left will believe any bad thing about Trump, and people on the right will believe basically any bad thing about Kamala. And that goes for basically every single political issue. For instance, a good example right now is tariffs. Tariffs and taxing the rich will both have the same exact net negative for our economy. However, the left wants to tax the rich and the right wants tariffs, mainly because Trump wants tariffs. These will both raise prices in stores for average Americans for practically the same reason. The basic idea of why people think tariffs would be a net good for the economy is that if you can discourage labor being outsourced to countries with less strict labor laws, it will raise the price of goods being manufactured abroad. Therefore, consumers will be more inclined to purchase the cheaper or more similarly priced American products. However, in practice, American companies just see people are willing to pay more for a product, so they raise their price as well, therefore causing inflation. And the tax the rich crowd wants to tax the rich because they need to pay their quote-unquote fair share. It's basically just a thing spawned out of jealousy. Failing to understand that billionaires and millionaires pay more in taxes every single year than you will probably pay for your entire life. So how does this cause inflation? Well, it's actually very simple, because people are greedy. Okay, the billionaire is not just going to sit there and watch more of his money get taken away, not do anything. That's going to hurt him personally. So what does he need to do? He needs to raise the prices in his company, therefore he takes more home. This, of course, increasing the prices for the average everyday consumer. There's so much more you can go into detail on this subject specifically, and it could literally be an entire video in and of itself. But to save time, that's basically the basic explanation I'm going to give for that. Okay, so how does that tie into the rest of the video? Well, it ties into the rest of the video because it shows that the media can take two things that are very similar and then polarize them onto each side and make them seem very different, and people will just eat that up. If it was the left-wing news medias advocating for tariffs, and it was Kamala Harris in office advocating for tariffs, all of her fans would be eating that up. And if it was Trump advocating for taxing the rich, not as many of his fans, but a lot of his fans would still be eating that up. And on face value, especially with the Trump part, you might be like, well, aren't Trump fans inherently against taxing the rich? And you would be right, but Trump would definitely try to frame it in some way of taxing the Democratic tax evaders. It's all about framing things in a way that will make people support things that they are inherently against. That is the entire point of propaganda. Okay, so now to bring it back to TikTok. TikTok is quite literally so much worse than those big media corporations because TikTok gives literally anybody a voice, which is inherently a good thing, but it's also a bad thing for having to actually put effort into discerning the truth, because now you have all these idiots who think they know stuff about politics putting their opinions out there, and you have to weed through and find what is actually true through, instead of maybe 4 or 5 news stations, through hundreds and hundreds of influencers. A bunch of left and right-wing midwits who basically just listen to whatever the consensus is on their side. They just listen for whatever the consensus is that supports their personal beliefs and then just regurgitate it. There's no actual journalism. There's no actual research that goes into this. And then somebody who's not very politically literate at all, because they probably don't care about politics or whatever, sees a TikTok about this, and then it just sticks in the back of their mind. And then the algorithm feeds them another one, and the algorithm feeds them another one, and another one, and another one, all supporting this same idea. And then they're like, huh, well, that's probably true. All these people are saying it. And then this person just walks around in life believing in whatever the misinformation was, whether it was from the red team or the blue team, and they don't think to do any actual research into it, whether they don't have time to, or they just simply are too lazy to. And then perhaps via word of mouth, they tell their friends about it, and their friends don't think to do any research into it because, oh, I trust Billy. You know what I mean? It's just an easier way for propaganda to spread. And it wouldn't be such a big problem if people weren't such, as cringe as this sounds, NPCs, and just believe whatever is spoon-fed to them. So what is the solution with this? Because obviously it's not more moderation on these sites at all, because then the actual truth will just get obfuscated by all these other things that the actual company wants you to believe. And it's also not just banning the companies and stuff altogether, because that would be limiting free speech as well. As unfortunate as it is, the actual solution for this is to have people be more educated, to actually think outside of the little box of the media being pushed at them and challenge it. But unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to do that, even after watching a video like this, because they'll just think, oh, he's just an idiot on YouTube who has no idea what he's talking about. My beautiful MSNPC would never lie to me. So I'd like to issue you guys 2 challenges for this video. The first one is, next time you see a piece of news media, look into it critically and think, what does this news company have to gain if this is true, and what do they have to lose if this is true? And the second one is, I want you guys in the comment section down below to try and guess where I fall politically. I will not give you any hints, but this whole video was practically a hint. So if you guys did enjoy the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. We're almost at 8 minutes, so I'm just going to get us talking a little bit. How was your day? Tell me below. All right, we're there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.